All right, welcome everybody. I am David Carter, the Killer DM, aka the host of Crucible of Fate. And I am joined today by Michael Rusco, who is the host of Die Inspired. And so we're going to have a little chat together and learn as much as we can about Die Inspired, where it came from, how it came about, how things evolved, and try to look at a bunch of different aspects of it. So, welcome, Rusco, and thanks very much for taking the time to
Great to
chat
see
with
you
me.
again, Dave.
You too, you too. We're just coming off Rusco's involvement in Crucible of Fate, so it's great now to switch gears and start talking about Die Inspired, which I think we both kind of became aware of one another and our shows around the same time. And I think we kind of like started following each other on Instagram to be like, okay, hold on a sec here. This is another guy that's trying to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Is he
You stole
doing
my
exactly
ID.
what I'm doing? And we checked each other's shows out, and although there's some similarities, which we'll get into, there's definitely some major differences. And through talking about that, yeah, we've gotten to know each other, and you've now been a contestant on my show.
Yeah.
Maybe in next episode we can find a way for me, or next season, to be part of
Well,
Die Inspired.
I've got big plans for season two and the Killer DM making an appearance.
Cool. All right, I look forward to that. So to kick things off, how did you come up for the idea for Die Inspired? And I'm curious, like, what was the evolution from the idea just first appearing in your head to do something different, all the way to where you started pushing record on the cameras?
It was it was quite a long process. It was June of 2021. It was actually just a phone call between myself and Val, the co-creator of Die Inspired, and he was asking me about, oddly enough, Critical Role. He was like, "Have you ever seen it?" I was like, "Yeah, I've seen it. I know what it is." And I made the comment, I'm like, "Man, it would be so much fun to do something like that." And that just sparked an idea in his head. He goes, "Well, why don't we? We'll we can just get some cameras and record a game." And then over the next year, it just kept evolving and growing. And we're like, well, what aspects of live games do could we improve upon or put our own spin on? And that's where the the competition style, the competing for a prize, um, kind of survivor reality show aspect just kind of fell into place. I pushed against it at first because I'm kind of a truist. You know, I like to stay true to the game, and Val is much more of a let's push the envelope uh, kind of mindset. So it just kind of grew on its own. How we ended up with that many people playing in our game was still kind of a mystery to us because we didn't think they were going to show up. We thought for sure we'd put all this time and money into all this equipment to record a game, and nobody would be there. But they showed up. So it was a long process, but it was quite an adventure.
And so you ended up with 70, was
Mm-hmm.
it? 70 different contestants? And like, how did you go about deciding how you were gonna like divvy up all of the different contestants, put them in different groups, and scheduling, and how the story was gonna evolve? Because just to contrast the two, I mean, with Crucible of Fate, it's very set. There's just these three games that are played every time. It's the same kind of framework every time. But with you, it's an ongoing story that you've divided up. So yeah, maybe if you could just tell us a bit
Yeah,
about how you organized it.
it was they kind of divided themselves up. So we set up a website where you could go to the website and sign up, and you picked one of four ships, which is actually right here behind me.
Yeah, gorgeous mini.
Yeah, that took a long time to paint and build. So you basically you pick which ship you're on, and each ship there was four different time slots. So we had a few people that signed up together and kind of started the game out with alliances already in place. But the first weekend we ran 4 games with a max of 20 people at a table, and it was a wild weekend. So they kind of naturally or organically sorted themselves into their own groups.
Okay. And so, I mean, I've run some decent sized tables, maybe like 8, but I find once you get above 5 or 6, table management can be tricky. So, how did you go about running tables of 20?
So yeah, running a game for that many people, while intimidating, I think that because everybody kind of sits down, there's cameras, there's microphones, it's this big production. I think that warrants a little grace towards the DM. One of the problems with having bigger groups is it takes so long in between your turn, you getting to do anything, that it creates a kind of a slow dragging situation. But because of the setup that we had, and everybody's already kind of excited and nervous, it kind of offers a little grace there. And then you just be as theatrical and entertaining as you can. Like there's a lot that's not shown in our show. The friendly banter, walking around, getting to meet people. We had snacks set up outside during breaks, and so there was fun aspects of the game itself that isn't on our show.
Well, it's a lot of logistics to bring that many people together and run it. Like, what would you say was the biggest logistical challenge to getting Die Inspire going, and really like every filming session?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle or logistical hurdle would be you're writing a story and you don't know who the characters are. So every week after every session, we're preparing the next session based on what they did in this session, and how do we carry the story in the direction that we need it to go, knowing that they're all going to inevitably go left when we needed them to go right. So no matter how much planning or scheming or working through the little things that could go wrong, players are naturally going to find ways to turn everything upside down and screw up all your plans.
As they do always in every game.
That's
Which
part
is
of the
good.
excitement too,
Yeah.
because you don't know what's coming next. So if it's week to week, you're like, okay, what pitfalls, what problems could we run into? And you prepare for those, knowing that the more prepared I am for all these potential problems, when they do hit me with something that I don't have an answer for, I kind of have a workaround. I can kind of work my way through it. But that would probably be the toughest thing about running a game that big.
Yeah. Any particular like, oh shit moments that you can remember where someone did something that totally threw off
Yes,
the game plan?
it is. The first parts of Die Inspired up until right now is a lot of big groups trying to survive. Now we're about to get into the mystery and story aspects of what we're doing. All of the best stuff is coming up shortly, but there is one scene coming up where the players in the room were verbally getting upset and cussing at each other.
At each other.
Thought we might actually have a fist fight in the parking lot. Like it was. I hope it portrays well when that episode comes out. But there is some very tense moments where I thought for sure people were going to start throwing dice at me.
Yeah. Okay. Any details you want to give, or you want to leave it for the show to speak for
Yeah,
itself?
I don't know if I can give any details without
Sure.
letting the cat out of the bag, because it's one of those things where when that moment happens, the only response is, I can't believe that just happened. So
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it, because it's pretty intense. We have some amazing tense moments where you can actually see on the players' faces the turmoil that they're in, the struggle that they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. And as much as you want everyone to be enjoying the experience, that is some good content, and there's a sense of satisfaction as a DM to have like created a situation where people are that amped up and that kind
Hmm.
of invested. So
Yeah.
yeah, good for you for creating that.
Yeah, it was tense. And I look forward to doing it again. Like I'm excited to start doing season 2 so we can put people in more pickles and have them get mad at each other or mad at me.
So you talked a bit about like that initial phone call with Val, and then your plans to build the show and how it was going to work. Did the reality of running the games kind of meet your expectations? Like, did it all unfold the way that you thought it would? And what were like the most unexpected difficulties in running a competitive
There are
or
some
zombie show?
it I think yes, it did go the way I thought it might. And then no, it didn't at the same time. Um, I mean, anybody who's run games knows that things are going to go awry at any moment. But there was some unforeseen things like everybody having that sense of like we're all part of this. So they're competing in this story in this campaign to survive and win the cash prize. They want to be helpful. They want to be good players and good contestants, and they want the show to do well. And I would get emails excited about the next game, or what can we do to help. A whole bunch of people since have come up and how can we help Die Inspired, which is great. You kind of throw all these people into this weird situation where they're all killing each other, and then they can still be friends afterwards, and they don't hate you for it. This whole thing has been trial and error, as you can attest to with Crucible Fate. You try something, and it either works or it kind of works or it doesn't work, and then you keep making improvements, and you're like, okay, we can do this better here, we can do that better, we can visually make this more entertaining. And we're getting to that point in season 1 where all the mystery and all the story is finally starting to happen, and we're very excited to do that, to get into that part of the game, because there's way more here than just a bunch of deckhands lost on an island. There is something going on here. There's way more to the story. I'm very excited to get into that part of the show, because this is where we have some cool things planned with puzzles and riddles, and there's actually a riddle in place right now that nobody has caught on to throughout the
Okay.
episodes. So there's some exciting things that I can't wait to see how they work out in our show. Hopefully they do work out, but there's some twists and turns that are coming up that I'm pretty excited about.
How about like you as a DM and a fan of D&D, like has this transformed like your interest or love in D&D into more like work, or has it amplified your enjoyment in the game?
Well, there's two parts to, as I'm sure you understand, there's two parts to doing a show like we're doing. There's the creative aspect. There is building the worlds and the story and creating NPCs and these visual scenes, and there's that part of D&D which I love, and I'm sure you agree with me on that. There's that creative aspect, but then you get into the business side of it, like trying to understand YouTube analytics and algorithms and that stuff. I'm excited to move past that and get back into creating, because that's where my true passion is. I've a newfound enjoyment in making models that I didn't know I really had a skill for at all. And turns out it's kind of entertaining. It's fun to do.
Yeah.
But but yeah, the creative aspect is way more enjoyable for me than the business side of it, because I'm not very good at that. It's not really my forte.
It's tough. I mean, it's a new environment, I think, for both of us, even though YouTube's been around for a while. I think joining it at this stage in the game, 20 years into YouTube being around, or even
Yeah, I don't know.
more. Yeah. And especially during and the tail end of COVID, where a lot more people kind of threw their hat in the
Ring,
ring.
yeah,
That's the right
yeah,
saying.
because there's a lot of live play games out there. I've watched some I'm a fan of, but there's so many. There's no way I could watch all of them.
Yeah. Oh, for
It's a
sure.
it's a competitive
And
market we're in.
it is, yeah, and you need to find a way to navigate the algorithm. Like I know it certainly isn't a fan of the 2 and 3 hour videos, so that's something we're reevaluating. But like for you guys, what are the next steps for Die Inspired? Any?
Big, the biggest one is finishing season one strong. We've learned some valuable lessons when it comes to recording a show and editing a show and releasing the content. I mean, we break all of our stuff down into 15-20 minute episodes, so it's how do you get all that information into a shorter episode? We've learned a lot along the way for that. So creating season two is going to be different from the perspective of we can plan the game itself for the players, knowing what we can expect out of the show itself. So instead of, for instance, in season one with the 4 ships, that ended up being a little bit problematic because it was hard to keep track of who's on what ship and what storyline is which. So something to avoid in season two is having too many storylines going on at the same time that make it hard to follow. So there's lessons to be learned in everything, and we just keep improving and trying to make it better.
So one more question I have about kind of the Die Inspired world. I mean, you've obviously focused in on a part within a body of water and an island. Do you have plans to fill everyone in on the rest of that world? Like, is there a world setting or a campaign book in your future?
We would like to get to that point. We have been writing a lot. The whole Pantheon story was created by Val and I. The world of Orin. On our website, there's actually an interactive map where you can click on the respective cities, and an image code comes up with like the stats of the city, the different regions. So we've built the world, and we know where our story is going to take us in this world. We just have to get to a point to where we can fill in some of the details of the world that we're building.
Awesome, Rusco. Well, it was great to talk to you. Thanks very much for taking the time. I know how busy it can be behind the scenes. So yeah, thanks very much, man, for filling us in on what brought Die Inspired about and giving us a sense of where it's going.